So now types of organization. See again, this is not a standard area of syllabus. Aita. You can write many more, types of organizations, but we are giving you like some basics. Okay, now we are going to discuss about 10 different types of organizations, and you can write many more other than this as well. Okay, this is not a closed topic, it's a very much vague and wide topic. Aita. So firstly, we are starting off with ministry or ministries. Okay, so and again one more thing, when we were doing organizational theories, we were sticking mostly to our private sectors, private administration. But when we discuss our types of organizations, I want you all to come to the purview of government organizations. Okay, so now we are talking about public administration. So how to run a governmental setup. So now when we talk about governmental setup, we are going to talk about the types of organizations under the governmental setup mostly. Aita? Yes. So firstly, ministry or ministries. What do you know about this? There is going to be one elected representative who will be given a portfolio under which he is going to operate for the stipulated time period, for the time period that he is elected for. That is nothing but a ministry. Okay. So it's a term used to refer to the office of minister or political executive. Minister or political executive designated with a portfolio to direct, supervise, monitor, control and function in a specific area. Okay, it's a highly significant and ensures democratic implementation of public policy. Democratic implementation of public policy. So what is the democratic element here? Why do they call a ministry as a democratic implementation of public policy? Because this person is a elected person. Therefore, people's opinions are being represented. So democratic implementation of public policy. This is very important. It is headed by a political executive, and day-to-day activities and operations are taken care of by the administrators, who are the permanent executive. So now here you are going to have one political executive as the head. So he is going to be the minister. Okay. Under him there is going to be bureaucrats. Okay. So they are nothing but your permanent executives. Under a temporary executive or a political executive is going to be the permanent executive. So these are the pillars which are going to influence the implementation part. Okay. So it's headed by political executive. Then ministry is the way of organizing business related to specific area under the direction of meta policy. What's a meta policy? Bigger one, like, which is developed for the country. Okay, so one particular ministry is going to execute for the whole country this particular policy. That's what it means for the meta policy, specific area of a meta policy. Next one is departments. So now we understood what a ministry is. Now departments are under the ministries. Sometimes they are under the ministries, sometimes they are independent of the ministry. So they directly report to PM. Okay, now so that's what it means by department. See now, even before we get into the details of it, what's a department? Department is nothing but a branch under the ministry. That means if you have like 100% task, 20% of the task is carved out and given to one particular department. Okay, so under a ministry, now let's assume that there's Ministry of Shipping. Okay, so now under the Ministry of Shipping, there is going to be so many works. Yes, you have to take care of the vessels involved in, this trade. Okay, and then the species involved. Okay, what kind of products are being bills. Okay, financial aspects of it, product aspect of it, service aspect of it. Okay, and then taxation aspect of it. A lot of things are involved. Okay, so maybe departments, each of the department is taking care of the complete functions of the ministry. Okay, now. Yes, so certain departments may not be under the ministry always. Okay, so example is our atomic energy department. Directly talks to PM. Okay, it's a very strategic department, right? So, and again, we do not have a political executive for that. So we know the strategic importance of it, right? So a department is a part of larger organization. It's a part of larger organization with a specific responsibility. Specific responsibility. It is that fundamental or basic arrangement through which the policy process could be organized in regards to formulation as well as implementation of activities of policies. Formulation plus implementation part. Formulation plus implementation. So now let's assume that now Ministry of Textiles is coming up with a policy. Now we recently have this renewable energy policy, right? So if the renewable energy ministry is coming up with a policy, do you think minister alone sat down and prepared the document? He's just the voice of the document or face of the document. So departments would have sat down and given the draft as to what is possible and what could be done in the next 5 years. So that is what is being read out by the minister. Okay, you get it? So formulation plus implementation activities in the hands of the department again. Okay, so you should not misunderstand this as just the implementation aspect is in the hands of the department. Formulation is also the work of department. Then it functions under a minister or it can be independent of a minister and functions autonomously. So example is Department of Atomic Energy that works directly under the PM of India. Correct? Yes. So a part of large organization with a specific responsibility indulged in formulation and implementation of policies, sometimes headed by minister and sometimes it works autonomously. That is all you have to know about departments. This is the second type of organization. Then comes third one called corporation. So what do you know about corporation? Let's get into it. So it's an organizational arrangement that owes its existence to some legislative instrument under which it has been created. So like she said, it's absolutely right. Okay. So primarily we would have seen this body coming up only after the passing of an act. NABARD. Okay. SEBI. They all came through an act, a legislative instrument. So this comes into existence with some legislative instrument. Okay, so why does this happen? So like these are not based on the, see when we started off with our constitution, no, we didn't know a lot of opportunities that would come up for us at a later point of time. So when we realized that, okay, these industries need some special focus, then we passed on a law and then we came up with new corporations. Okay, you get it? So that's what it means. That means it may or may not be present at the time of the constitutional enactment and later created for a specific purpose by an act of parliament under the government. Got it? Yes. So examples are these: Power Grid Corporation of India, ONGC, Cotton Corporation of India. So many public sector enterprises and what we call today, they're all corporations. They all have a backing of statute or a legal act behind them. These are actually one clear distinction between corporation and a company is corporations are generally very huge and public. Companies are not so huge, they're generally private and they're also relatively small compared to corporations. Not always, but sometimes. Okay. And one more thing is all the companies can be called as a corporation, whereas not all corporations can be a company. Okay. You should understand this. So that means what? Company is a subset of corporation. Examples are very important in types of organization. See, it's very rare that you can expect a question like this, but what if there is one? You can easily score marks. Then comes our company. This is the fourth type, yeah. So company. What is this now? So it's an organizational arrangement created for managing functions related to some commercial area or job. Managerial functions related to some commercial area or job. It's also a legal entity or person competent to enter into contract and can be sued as well as sue and acquire assets in its own name. Okay, so this is little commerce. So commerce student. Okay, so legal entity is nothing. What do we mean when we say a legal entity? Identity. Okay, now like I have a legal entity, like each one of us have a legal entity, yes or no? We are recognized as what? Citizens of India, right? We have a domicile status, we have Aadhaar card, okay? We have voting rights, yes? So that's nothing but our legal entity. That means if somebody violates my rights, I can file a suit against that particular violator in the courts, right? So this is also very much like that. Once a company is registered under the Companies Act, Companies Law, Okay, so 1956, if it's amended for a lot of times. Okay, so after that, like registration, it assumes its legal entity status. Okay, so now once it is legally, assumed or presumed as a individual person, then it is going to have its right to sue and be sued. That is, people can file suit against the entity, and also the entity can file a suit against the people as well. Okay, so that's what it means by the right or power to sue and be sued. Okay, so it's nothing but filing cases. Then it is started off with a corpus or principal business capital to start off with, and then is supposed to carry out its business and earn profits for the government, which will then be used for the benefit of the people through plan money. That means what? Here they are referring to companies as private players. Okay. Now, does that rule out government companies by any chance? No. We have a lot of companies which are actually, limited liability companies, which are run by the government. They are registered under the companies law. Okay. But here they are referring to, in this point, they are referring to privates. Okay. But otherwise, even public companies, government sector can invest and become a company. So when it's a company, it's mostly for the purpose of benefit. Andre profit motive is stronger. Got it? Yes? Did you all understand here? Any doubts in this? Moving ahead, boards and commissions. So what do we know about boards and commissions? Mainly talks about the specialization, expertise, knowledge is involved in the boards. Okay. So boards and commissions refer to such organizational units which are created by executive for having deliberations by specialists in that field. Okay. So it's nothing but people who are implementing the policy. Could be a minister, or could be a departmental need, or could be through a statute. Okay. So now a board comes up because, we need to understand what exactly is the need of the hour. Okay. So boards are generally for people who have the expertise in that particular field. Okay. So like you said, coffee board. Coffee boards primarily pay attention to the problems involved in coffee plantation. Okay, na? So it is a specialist opinion on the issue involved. Okay, that's the prime function of the boards. Okay, so example, advisory board or commission, administrative reforms commission. Even commissions are for the very same purpose, not just the board. Okay, our ARC and lot of other commissions, election commissioner bodu. Okay, we could have human rights commission. A lot of commissions are primarily, and what is the difference between the commission and a committee? Commission is little important and is for over a longer period of time than the committee. Okay, committee is only for a specific cause. Okay, so for if we have to go for a small research or something, you just do it and then leave. Okay, that's nothing but a committee. Okay, so commissions are for a longer period. Boards and commissions are almost similar. Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, Law Commission, these are all examples. Moving ahead is a committee. It's a form of association where a group is created of a particular organization or field to represent a larger organization and either make decisions or gather information, analysis for it and its betterment. Okay, let's break it now. Okay, so there is already one organization. Okay, there is already one established setup, and that setup wants one particular task to be done. Okay, now let's assume that Amazon is going for a research on Indian clothing style. Okay, now for that they'll set up one committee on Indian clothing. Okay, now there will be one chairperson, then followed by so on, so on, so on. Okay, so in government also it will be very much like that only. Okay, so now if they would want to come up with some particular reforms, okay, police reforms, okay, they might come up with specific issues involved, maybe like related to suicides or whatever it could be. Okay, so they set up one committee, and in that particular field only they operate. Okay, so it is primarily for a particular organization or field that represents a large organization, and this is mainly to gather information and analyze that information. Okay, gather the information and analyze that information and come up with better decisions. So look at the examples: Hajj Committee of India, Genetic Engineering Approval Committee, Alag Committee, Public Accounts Committee. So what do these committees do generally? They do not have one particular task that they are doing from years together. They just, as and now they have new tasks coming up at their table and they're finishing it and then throwing off the papers. That's it. Right? That's what it means by a committee. Committee is mostly for a specific purpose and for a temporary time period. Then comes our council. So what's a council? It's a form of organization wherein various parts of the whole body or organization have been provided equal representation in decision-making process and helps in building consensus. See, councils are, brought in places where we need some kind of culmination of ideas. Okay, so where we feel that equal representation or proper representation is necessary and everybody's opinion should be, resonated in the final policy. In those areas, we come up with councils. Okay, we have the zonal councils and interstate water council. Okay, so they're primarily to give representation. Okay, na? So that's the prime idea behind having the organizational setup by name council. Okay, so it's mainly focusing on equal representation in decision making process and building consensus. National Development Council, Interstate Council, South Zone Council, Council of Ministers. So you hear this term council anywhere, so you should connect to the idea of, consensus. Moving ahead, ad hoc and advisory committees, regulatory authorities and PPPs. So ad hoc and advisory bodies, ad hoc means what? Temporary. Okay, the very term ad hoc itself means temporary. When a new issue comes up and there needs a special team to deal with that particular issue, we set up ad hoc committees. Okay, so now when we started off with demonetization, maybe we would have set up a lot of ad hoc committees immediately to deal with the issue. COVID also again, okay, ad hoc committees. Okay, so advisory, okay, and then advisory bodies, when we need an expert opinion on a particular issue, okay, when the backing organization or the government does not have enough expertise to decide on certain things, they resort to taking information from this advisory bodies. Okay, so advisory bodies are created in regard to various functional areas as and when executive is of the opinion that a deliberation and a thorough analysis by specialists shall be useful for pursuing the implementation of a policy in a given issue or area. So it's very important by specialists for pursuing the implementation of a policy. So mainly this is not binding in nature. That's very important. It shall be useful. Okay. It's not necessary for the government or the organization to strictly follow the, suggestions or recommendations given by the advisory bodies. Okay. So these are like, just namesake bodies that the government have. Okay. Sometimes they do take the, suggestion. Sometimes it is very much plainly rejected. Okay. These advisory bodies may be created by Cabinet Secretary, Prime Minister's Office, or any other appropriate levels as deemed fit by the executive. So these are temporary bodies that are created to get a specialist opinion. And that opinion is not binding on the ministry or government. Then regulatory authorities. The very term itself says it is for the purpose of regulation. What is regulation? It's more of like, tuning. That means you regulate is nothing but you do not control them. Okay, you try to on and off give them some, push, and sometimes you pull them back. Okay, so that's what it means by regulating. You're not, when it comes to monitoring, regulation happens as a process of monitoring. Okay, so regulation is primarily you're trying to regulate them. That means you're trying to control their operations. Got it? You're not controlling themselves, their operations. So these are establishments which are created by the government with the objective of regulating, that is, controlling and monitoring the functioning of organizations taking care of a special area or job. So very much appropriate is our SEBI. What does SEBI do? It regulates all the bodies involved in shares, right? So financial instruments, all the financial instruments are monitored by our SEBI, right? TRAI, all the telecommunication activities are taken care of by the TRAI. Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI. Okay, so regulatory means it actually regulates the operator's activities. So whenever you are going overboard, it tries to control you. And then you are under the constant supervision of this particular body. Got it? That's what it means by a regulatory body. Then last one is our public-private partnership. So now this is one type of organization where there is a joint operations by government as well as the private people. So when it is called a PPP, it could be in any percentage. So when it is called a public enterprise, when the shares are 51% and above in any particular company, stake could be in the form of different forms, okay? Could be capital invested or shares, stocks, whatever, okay? So if the government of India is holding 51% of stake in any kind of organization, it's called as government, okay? So which is less than 51% is called as private, or it can be called as PPP. Got it? Yes. So now let's assume 40% is by government of Karnataka and 60% is by a private player. What is it called? It's a PPP model. This is one of the models of investment. Okay? Yes. What about our BMTC? It's a PPP. BMRCL, PPP, right? It's like, it's a combination of private and the public. Got it? Yes. So these are the types of organizations.